In this video, I'm gonna take questions from all of you that you have left in the comments on my prior videos and answer them to the best of my knowledge. Just remember that it's just my personal opinion, so don't take it personal on anything that I say. And I'd also like to say that I'm not endorsed or sponsored by any camera manufacturers. Nobody pays me to do any of this. I'm not an ambassador or any of that stuff. So I'll just give you my honest opinion on what I think about whatever the question might be. So let's get to the first question. This question is from Bryce Thauman or Bryce Tommen. I'm not sure there. Happy New Year. I hope that you have an excellent year full of good fortune. Well, Happy New Year to you as well. I have a question for you. When you print your images, both paper prints like one you would put in a scrapbook and canvases that one would hang on their wall, what file format do you send to the printing lab in order to get the perfect best quality prints? PNG, JPEG, TIFF, or something completely different? Also, when you are displaying your images in one of your videos, do you display them as a JPEG? Like I've noticed the file type you choose when displaying your images on your website's image gallery, or is it some other format? Thank you very much. Keep up the great work and take care. So printing isn't really my forte. I'm not really an expert in it, and I don't have that much stuff printed, but I do know that the file itself doesn't really matter as much as the resolution of the file and how big you want it printed. What most printers will want is they'll want a specific DPI or dots per inch, and that varies on what you're actually having printed. Canvas isn't as high resolution, so something like this Osprey back here doesn't have to be as high of a resolution because canvas just isn't as high of a resolution. So I think it was around 140 DPI that they want, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. I believe that was 240 DPI when I sent that off to the place to have printed. When you're printing metal prints, it's a different story. They want a higher resolution print. They want, or a higher resolution file. They want a minimum of 300 DPI, and I deliver a JPEG for that as well. Whether or not they convert it to a TIFF or anything else, I don't know. But there's a big difference. Here, let me show you. I just happen to have this really nice metal print right here, one of my favorites. So this is a good example of a metal print. I don't know if this light is bouncing too much off of it and you're seeing too much of a reflection or not. So this would actually be a 300 DPI print, and that's what the actual printer asked me for. They wanted a 300 DPI file, and that allows for this really high-res print like this. For images online, like on my website, and images in my videos, they're just JPEG images. That's all they are, and I believe they only have to be 72 DPI for computer screens, but I could be wrong on that as well. I think the default setting in Lightroom is around 240 DPI or something like that. So when I'm making my videos, that would be the resolution of the images in my videos, and they're JPEGs. And my actual website, if any of you ever care to go see any of the images from my videos, is marksmithgallery.com. Those are all just JPEGs that are synced through SmugMug and Lightroom. I kind of use those two apps together, and it's very, very helpful. Question number 2 comes from the Gizadj. I don't know how you pronounce that one, but hey, that's a good try. Great videos, Mark. I started watching the A9 reviews and subscribed because of those. Can I test your experience or your expertise, please? I shoot Canon, but I'm seriously thinking of trying Sony's A9 with the 200 to 600 for birds in flight, UK Kingfisher. The other option would be to continue with Canon and go for the R5 and the EF/RF adapter so I can use my EF 100 to 400 MK2 lens. Which would you say is better for eye focus, A9 or R5? And would you suggest I be better to go for the R5 or make the change to Sony? Hope I haven't confused you and hope you're able to reply. Regards, Gary from the UK. In terms of the eye autofocus, I think the Canon R5 has better eye autofocus, but there's a big caveat with that. I've seen from my experience that the eye autofocus isn't always accurate. It'll say it's on the bird's eye, but it's not. It's focused somewhere else. And the R5, in my hands and in my experience, struggles in one extremely important area for me, and that's birds on the waterline. The R5 gets really confused with waves and ripples along the waterline. So if osprey are diving in, when the osprey hit the water, which is the shot you want, and when they're coming out, which is the shot you want, the R5 seems to kind of lose its mind, regardless of what setting I have chosen for any of it. Hopefully they can fix that in a firmware update, and I have a video coming up soon to actually demonstrate this problem. with a lot of good data to back it up. So my opinion, I like the Sony stuff better. I get more shots in focus, even though I don't actually use Sony's animal eye detect at all. I use a focus method or a focus area on the Sony cameras called zone, and I get about 99% of my shots in focus, even at the waterline where other cameras get confused. The Sonys don't really get confused, and if they do get confused, they correct themselves almost immediately, and I'll lose maybe one shot, where other cameras I can lose 3 to 5, sometimes 10 shots at a time. So my personal preference is the Sony gear. And again, hopefully the Canon R5 can actually work out what that problem is down on the waterline. We'll see. Like in sticks and stuff, it doesn't seem to do that. Like if you have a bird that's in cover, but down on that waterline where I do most of my shooting, it just seems to kind of go a little berserk. So I prefer the Sony stuff right now. This question is from Long Rider. Mark, do you shut the IBIS in the camera off also above 1/2000th of a second? No, I only actually shut the IBIS. This is in reference to the Sony cameras that I use. I shut the image stabilization off right on the barrel of the lens right here. I don't do anything in camera. This question is from Steve Miller. Is it me or are your glasses on crooked? I have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, I'm kind of insulted at that. Actually, no, my glasses aren't crooked. If anything, my face is crooked. Everyone's face is crooked. That's what makes us unique. So one ear is lower than the other. So it might seem like my glasses are crooked. Thanks for exposing my facial flaw to the world. Now I'm going to be self-conscious in every video I make from this point on. This question is from Daniel Benagen. Hi, Mark. Great content and what a nice lens. I recently bought one for my Alpha A7 II, and it does take nice shots. I'm pretty new to wildlife photography and thought that I wouldn't have to get too close to fill up the frame to see the minute details, but I find I still have to crop. I know I need to keep working on my technique. Do you crop or just maneuver a little bit closer to the subject to fill up the frame? I think the general rule of thumb is you should always try to fill the frame as much as possible with your subject. That way you can actually crop in even more for more detail. Now, a lot of my stuff, it varies because I don't have an exact distance between me and the bird. It's always different. But I do try to get as close as possible and fill the frame as much as possible. The lower the resolution of your camera, the less you will be able to crop in and see detail. Like, so for instance, on the A9, you try to fill the frame as much as possible, but on the A7R4, you don't necessarily have to do that because you have actually 61 megapixels of data that you can crop into. And with something like the Sony 600 f4, the amount of detail when you crop in at high levels like that is still just astronomically good. So you can get away with a tight crop on the A7R4. But there's something I'd like to mention too that's really, 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 really important. And I never really hear anybody ever talk about this. So you always want to try to get as close as you can to your subject, but always remember too that at the same time, the closer you are, the more of a strain you're actually putting on your camera. So your aperture and your shutter speed are both relative to the distance between you and your subject. So the further away your subject is, the slower they're moving across the plane of your sensor, the slower your shutter speed can be. When you're right up on top of a bird and the bird's moving really fast, their wings are moving very fast across the plane of your sensor, so your shutter speed has to be faster the closer you are. Aperture is kind of the same. So if your subject is further away, they take up less space in your depth of field, so you can shoot more wide open. But when you get really, really close and start getting on top of stuff, you'll have to stop down. So the closer you get, the more you constrain the light coming into your camera. So you really need to find the perfect distance between you and your subject that lets you balance your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO to get the perfect picture. Whew. This question is from Rick Melcher. Hey Mark, I've been a subscriber a while now, so I apologize for not giving you tons of praise all over again. LOL. I had an A7 III, but used most of the settings for birdings, bald eagles. I received my A9 less than 3 hours ago and had to watch your video for the 15th time. Well, okay, 14th. Thanks again for the best camera tube I've watched, and I've watched countless hours of others. Take care, stay healthy. P.S. I'm interested to learn more about your tripod setup, maybe in a future video. If not, can you add some links to this video? Thanks. I actually prefer not to use a tripod. I find that for the fast moving stuff that I like to shoot, a tripod really just slows me down. So I prefer to handhold everything. It's just easier for me. I understand a lot of people can't do that and they struggle with that. So when I do use a tripod is if I'm shooting video, for instance, or if it's really, really windy and I'm shooting a big lens like this. I'm talking like 30-mile-an-hour winds. This is like a sail. It's almost impossible to keep it in the frame and hold it steady. So that's when I would like to use a tripod. And I like to use Pro Media Gear stuff. So this is the gimbal that I would use. This is a Pro Media Gear Katana Junior. It's all aluminum. It's really lightweight. It's ball bearing, so it's actually really smooth. And the tripod I use as well is what I'm using right now at this moment to film all of this, so I can't show you, but it's a Pro Media Gear tripod as well, and I really like the tripod. Now, with all that said, this gimbal and that tripod were both given to me for evaluation purposes, so I did not pay for them. But that really has no impact on any of this because I actually bought a Pro Media Gear gimbal before this one, so that's how I kind of made the connection with these guys. They make great stuff. I really like their products, so when I do use a tripod, which is rare, I like to use the Pro Media Gear tripod setup that I have. I don't have a model number, I wish I did, and then I like this Katana Junior gimbal. This question is from Lynn Whistler. Will you be staying with Sony? Check out this picture here. This was shot with my Sony A9, the original. I don't own the A9 II. This was the A9 with the 600 f4, 1.4 tele, putting me at an effective focal length of 840 millimeters, and this is an Osprey with a ribbon fish. With results like this, yeah, I'm staying with Sony. And I'm filming this with my Sony A7R4 and a 24 millimeter 1.4. I like the Sony stuff, so yeah, I'm definitely staying with Sony. I don't have any plans on jumping ship to anything else anytime soon. But I do like to play with all camera stuff because I do workshops. It helps me to understand all of the cameras because a lot of people come to me to help them get shots using different cameras. So I like to play around with everything. I like to play around with Nikon. I like to play around with Sony. And I like to play around with the Canon stuff too. I haven't done much with the Fuji or Olympus yet. I don't know if I will. I don't have very many people that come to my workshops with that gear, so I don't really feel a need to have any kind of knowledge on that. But my favorite stuff right now is Sony. And this question is from Felipe Rios Silva. Hi, saludos from Chile. I like a lot your videos. I have a question. I am looking to buy a new camera body. I have enough money for a Nikon D500. I love wildlife photography. Do you think is a good camera for wildlife, or is better to wait and save money for a Nikon mirrorless body? Thanks. And you need to come to Chile for, say, pumas, guanacos, I don't know what that is, condors, and marine life like the marine otter. Oh, I would love to go there and photograph all that stuff. That sounds amazing. The D500 is a fantastic camera, and I think it probably will be a fantastic camera still for many, many years. Should you wait for Nikon to produce a decent mirrorless camera that is comparable to the D500? That's really tough. Excuse me, my dog is rubbing all over my leg right now. Hi, little dude. Look at this little guy. He's funny. Come here. Come here. This is Oliver. He's kind of a terror, believe it or not. He might look cute, but he's one interesting little dog. Hi, buddy. How you doing? Yeah, I know. He's a little mixed up as far as dogs go. But back to the subject. Waiting for Nikon to produce a good mirrorless. I'm not the type of person that likes to wait around really for much of anything other than good shots of birds. But waiting on technology, that's tough because as you're waiting, you're missing the opportunity to be out taking pictures. So I suggest you can get the best camera and best lens that you can afford right now. And this question is from Nafil Yoenis. I'm really bad at pronouncing these names, so I apologize in advance. Is A7S III good enough for bird photography, considering it's good for low light and should be able to take a higher ISO for cleaner photos and a faster shutter? Thank you and Happy New Year. I have the A7S III and it has quickly become my favorite camera, but ironically, I haven't taken one picture with the camera yet. I love its video capabilities and it's teaching me a lot, not only about the birds that I video, but also about my technique. I've learned that when I film myself trying to track these birds at 8x slow-mo, I can see my mistakes pretty glaringly, and it's actually helped me become a better photographer by isolating those mistakes and correcting them. Technically, I would think that it should be a great camera for stills, but just remember, it's only 12 tongue twister. It's only 12 megapixels, so you would really have to fill the frame, and you're not going to be doing too much cropping. Maybe one day in the future, if I can ever stop filming, doing video with it, I'll do some stills with it. But right now, it's my favorite camera, and I absolutely love what it does, especially with the Sony 200 to 600. It's probably, in my opinion, the best wildlife video camera combo on the market right now. In fact, here, let me show you actually a couple of clips that I've been doing here locally with some Osprey that will actually be a small part of a very huge Osprey documentary that I'm working on. It's going to be pretty epic, and here's what the A7S III is capable of. The magnificent dive of the amazing Osprey. This was captured at 4K 120 frames per second on the A7S III with the Sony 200 to 600. And this is just a very small example of some of the stuff I've been capturing that I'm going to use to make this Osprey documentary. It's simply stellar. And look at that fish, a big, huge sail cat. That's really unusual for these things to catch. This question is from Jeff Geerling. Can you start a Patreon? I probably won't ever be able to go on one of your workshops, but I'd still love to support your work. I've actually looked into starting a Patreon, and the problem that I saw with Patreon is they want you to reward people with extra things and extra perks, and I already give everything that I know how to give in my YouTube videos. So the best way that you can support me is actually just watching the videos, subscribing, sharing. It's cool, you don't have to come to a workshop. You can buy the guides that I make. I have shirts like this. You can purchase all of that stuff. I'm gonna be actually publishing an Osprey book here in the coming months. I'm gonna run a Kickstarter for that. Everybody will actually be able to take part in funding that book. It's gonna be actually pretty epic. So keep your eyes open for that, and that'll be a really great way to help support me in what I do. And plus you're gonna get a book, actually really, really nice quality book with some of my favorite Osprey photos and the stories kind of going along about the Osprey. So keep your eyes open for that as well. That's coming up. So the best way to support me is just what you're doing. Just watch the videos and share them. That's really, really helpful. That's it. Fix these glasses. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. I really like doing these types of videos. They're fun, they're informative, and a lot of people can actually interact with me and I can give back to them, so everybody benefits from this type of stuff. So leave questions in the comments and I'll get to them. I have a lot of good videos planned coming up. I've been working a lot on some, like I've been talking about, some documentary style stuff for the Osprey using the A7S III, all kinds of good stuff. By the time you see this, I'll actually be on my way up the East Coast to New Jersey and Jones Beach. I'm gonna hopefully go find some snowy owls. So if you know some information that you would care to share, let me know. I've already got a little bit of information from some people about the areas to go, and somebody's gonna take me out on a beach, so that'll be actually really cool. So hopefully I can bring that content to you. I have more content coming from the Canon R5, like I mentioned before, about the focus issue that I'm having, and another issue that I'm having with the 100 to 500 lens that they have with the vibration reduction kind of shaking the whole picture unexplainably for a while, every once in a while when you're shooting video. I've got the regular stuff I have, all the cool bird stuff coming up. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. Share this video if you found it helpful. All that good stuff that I always say at the end of the videos. And until next time, I'll see you later.